Vijay's mention of the topic of advertisement brings to my mind an observation made by Mother. You know, she was always very happy to distribute Sri Aurobindo's works and her own, especially on birthday occasions. She would herself ask the persons concerned the previous evening what books she would like to have. And human nature being what it is, quite a long list would be given to Champaklal, and many would ask for a complete centenary set of Sri Aurobindo. And she was very happy to give. So somebody asked her, Mother, but he is not going to read these things. She said, I know it. But giving books of Sri Aurobindo is my advertisement. These books are my advertisement. What did she mean by that? To make available the truth, to make people understand that such and such a knowledge, such and such a body of knowledge is available, without making claims to its excellence, making extravagant, laudations, but just present as things are. That is why she never allowed us even to make a compilation of reviews, appreciations of their works. He said, you can give a list, but no more. That is one. The second point of pertinence is when Sri Aurobindo's action was started, she was asked, she said, don't do propaganda. Naturally, it raised the question, what else to do? We have to advertise the wares. So she was asked, she said, propagate. Do not make propaganda. What's the difference? Mother said, propagation is to state the truth as it is, without caring whether it will be accepted, understood or not. Propaganda comes in when you dilute the truth to make it presentable, to make it acceptable to the public. And that's what I do not want. So, that is Mother's approach to advertisement. And as far as Sri Aurobindo's approach is concerned, many of you have surely read his letters on the subject, whether it was to Dilip Kumar or to Nirod Baran, I am not sure. He said, advertisement for a movement like ours is disastrous. I would permit advertisements only for items like Bicham pills, medicine. and not for what we are doing. Taking an overall view, trespassing the boundaries that have been set for me this morning, I would say that the best advertisement that we can make for the cause which we represent, the ideal which we aspire to serve, is to live that life. Living is the best advertisement. To be a model, to be an example, that itself speaks volumes. In some countries, I have come across certain goods of great quality, but they were never advertised. So when I asked, how is it that we never knew of these things? They said, we don't advertise. Because if we advertise, we are doomed. We will not be able to meet the demands, and there will be competitors. So we are satisfied to float in the market the best that we can do. And it is the quality that tells. There are shops in the West where there are not even boards, signboards. But there is always a rush of people going to that shop because they know that a particular quality goods is available there. So from mother's point of view, you have to ensure quality, no claim, and no dilution, whether it is a physical dilution or a psychological dilution. That is as far as advertisement is concerned. And if I am permitted to make an observation on the earlier very interesting prosa about the handicapped persons, both Sri Aurobindo and the mother look upon crafts, skilled production, not so much as a way of earning money, but expressing one's creative talent, organizing one's energies in the best possible productive manner. So the worth of a worker is to be measured in terms of the skill he shows, the sincerity he brings to bear, and what is more, the joy he takes in that work. A sincere worker, a potter who works on clay, there is an expression of serene joy as his pot comes nearing completion. To what extent does a worker take joy in his work and not just treat it as something mechanical that he has to go through to make his two ends meet? This is a point to be kept in mind while assuring a minimum wage, an equal rate. One has to keep in mind this aspect of the situation in effecting promotions, in encouragements. These are some of the salient features of the approach of the masters to these two questions. Having said that, I had better hasten to the subjects that have been announced. Illness, not a very pleasant subject, but something on which we need to know. Sleep, a very misunderstood, unappreciated feature of life, but it requires its own importance once you take to spiritual discipline. Illness, Mother observes, is falsehood of the body. When the body lives according to its truth, lives in terms of the balance struck by nature, it is said to be healthy, it functions smoothly. But when there is any kind of imbalance, disharmony, it expresses itself on the surface as illness. Gone are the days when illness was supposed to be only physical and physical remedies were applied. Today, science has expanded its horizons and they speak of psychosomatic illness, and there is another aspect, and that is spiritual illness. Illness, imbalance, can be caused by physical disequilibrium, vital uneven movements, emotional and mental maladies, and spiritual starvation. Any of these can upset the balance, and it expresses itself in the form of one disease or another. It used to be said, like diseases of cancer, tumor, these things are purely physical. But today, advanced medical opinion is coming round to the perception that at any rate the cancer is a stress disease. Heart complaints are largely stress diseases. Stress diseases are tensions of all kinds. Year before last, I believe, there was a remarkable book on, I don't get the title now, I reviewed it somewhere, an American doctor discussing how tensions, day-to-day tensions, stresses of this rat race cause cancer. He details an experiment which he and his colleagues conducted. They took a few of these patients, recorded their situation before the beginning of the experiment, and sent them fishing. They were asked to go to a particular fishing pond, each in a different place, and fish. Try to catch fish. So each one was sitting there for 5 to 6 hours, alone, with the rod, waiting for the fish to catch the bait. After a week or two, when they returned to the base, it was found that the condition of each cancer patient had remarkably improved by this simple measure. They were not subjected to any kind of tension, but they were quiet in nature, and that very physical quietude induced waves of calm, and that had a very settling effect on their systems. Now, this interaction between mental condition, psychological condition, and the physical health is now recognized everywhere. Medicines are usually applied. There are doctors, there are pharmacists who have set formulas and they give medicine. And today we have got antibiotics and similar life-saving drugs. Today, however, after the first initial enthusiasm over drugs is spent, they have realized that these drugs leave the health, the body condition in a worse state than before. They tide over the crisis, true, but the health condition is worse. So Mother observes that when these illnesses take place, we shouldn't rush to the doctors. We should first observe ourselves. What could have caused this imbalance? Many times, it is wise to let the disease run its course. Fever, cold, stomach troubles, they are to be let run their full course. She would even go to the extent of saying, draw it out, encourage it to spend itself out. Doesn't matter if you have to remain in bed for a longer time. Get it out of the system. And nature is a great ally in such efforts. It's all right, you would say, when diseases come from our own imbalance. What about the epidemics? What about viruses? What about the attacks that come from outside? Well, she has a solution there also. That is, most of these viruses, microbes in the air, she describes from her occult knowledge and experience that they are kind of materializations of ill will, envy, and evil vibrations. Not all from those around, no, but from the subtler worlds of the spirits, of the little entities that are born from the unfulfilled desires and greeds of people who are dead, from disembodied elements which swarm over the earth zone, and they take the form of these viruses and microbes. Physically you may give any explanation, but that's the true explanation. Now how do we prevent it? How do we make ourselves immune to the attacks of these external elements? there is a way. You all believe, and I do not need to prove to you, that this physical body is not all. This physical body, Annamaya Kosha, as described in the Upanishads, is only the outer, most sensible, visible body. Around this body, there is a subtle body, subtle physical. This subtle physical is not to be confused with the vital body, the pranamaya sharira. In between the vital body and the material body, there is a subtle physical body which acts as a bridge between the physical and the vital. It has the characteristics of both. Constituted of substance analogous to the physical, but more subtle, not that rigid, and having the vibrative quality of the vital, this subtle physical body forms a kind of envelope, coat, a sheath around the physical. It is bigger than the physical body, and at times you can have glimpses of it in what the theosophists call the aura. Aura is not the subtle physical body, but the radiations of the subtle physical body concretize themselves as auras. Now, any disease that attacks, any virus or whatever, it has first to gain entry through this subtle physical envelope. Unless it enters through that, it does not cannot get room in your physical body. And the subtle physical body has greater resources than the physical in rejecting, throwing off foreign, alien contacts. When we sneeze for no reason, when we feel uneasy for no reason, that is a sign that the subtle body is trying to throw off some attacks. And it is a prerequisite condition of good health to make that subtle physical envelope strong. If it is made strong, kept strong, then you have a protective wall surrounding you. And how do we do that? And that is by always having a positive attitude to things, always being cheerful, always having trust and faith in ourselves and in the divine. And the opposite, if you are prone to negative thinking, negative feelings, depressions of whatever kind, Mother says that it cuts holes into that physical envelope. And through those holes, the diseases find it easier to enter. So, we have, whether we are spiritual or not, at least as a measure of health, we have to develop a positive attitude to life, a cheerful disposition, and refusal to be depressed on any account. It has been found that many TB cases have their origin in continuous depression. Depressed condition of the mind. That affects the vital, which is the reservoir of life energy. And that is, when that vital gets depressed, it is very serious. And depressions cause leaks in the subtle physical envelope. This is a proved fact, and we had better keep these things in mind in forming our approach to daily circumstances of life. I said medicines are in the long run harmful, but living in this world where we always have to catch up with the clock, we have responsibilities to so many, we are obliged to take certain medicines or therapies to get over. They don't cure, but they help nature to tide over the crisis and benefit later by the recuperating energies of nature. Even these, in this field of medicine, there has been a great revolution during the last 1 decade. They have today what is called a holistic medicine, a holistic therapy by which a greater stress is laid on the healing energies of nature, healing energies of the body, self-healing, and external aids are only temporary helps. Even there, we can reduce the harmful effects by choosing medicines which are what Mother described as nearer nature. Most of the allopathic medicines are man-made, at least in the form in which they come to us. Chemicals. Ayurveda, they called it the science of life, Veda of life. They depend more on leaves, greens, roots, which are all belong to the plant world. And the consciousness in those plants and their derivatives is not yet deformed. That is the case at the human level. And those energies are summoned. They respond to spiritual pressures, spiritual calls, more than allopathic present-day medicines. Homeopathy, both Sri Aurobindo and Mother had a kind of sympathy with homeopathy, and Sri Aurobindo once made a very profound observation, referring to the tiny and still tinier doses. They go on reducing, rubbing and bring it to the smallest, tiniest molecular level. He said, somebody made joke, fun of it, that how can it affect, how can it have any use? He said, no. The infinitesimal is on the border of the infinite. That is, there is so much of potency. It is an almost infinite potency that is assembled, organized, and stored in that bit. But when Mother thought of homeopathy, she did not, of course, think of the present mode of practicing homeopathy, of having that book, seeing the index, finding out how many times you cough, how many times you get fever, and looking up the heading of fever. No. She said the key to homeopathy is in diagnosis. And the right diagnosis can come only from intuition. So, a power or some kind of intuition must be active in that person, by birth, by gift, by grace, whatever. So, when he sees the person, there is an intuitive feeling that this is the thing for him. And if he is open to that intuition, everything else is secondary. This is a fact. Now, to be open to intuition, the homeopathy physician must first be in a condition to be open to the action of intuition. And that is impossible if, to impress the patients, he has a swagger, he has a bluster, that yes, it will be all right and all that kind of thing, to create confidence. That is an activity of the surface being, which shuts out possibilities of the inner truth. So one has to be open to a spiritual and an occult inspiration. He himself must be one who is in touch with the soul of homeopathy through intuition. Otherwise, it is a fluke. This is the word used by Mother once. It is a fluke. It clicks and you are cured in no time. Otherwise, your disease is raised higher to test whether the medicine is correct, and the doctor loses control over it, and they just say it is you have done something wrong and they dispose of you. This is what is happening in the homeopathic world of today. Very, very few have that intuitive feel and the humility to know that the power that should govern their activities is something different and higher than their own selves. One has to be, as I said, somewhat spiritual. Above all, Mother believes that if we cultivate the discipline of integrating our own selves, the quality of thoughts, the quality of emotions, the impulses of desire, the kind of nourishment we take, the kind of sleep we have, if there is some kind of correspondence, if there is some kind of interrelation organized around the soul, the psychic being, then there is no reason why one should fall ill. One can live as long as one likes, as long as this balance is not disturbed, and it is not a static balance, it is a dynamic balance which goes on improving, adjusting itself to the changing world, to the changing consciousness. Speaking of consciousness, she says that the gulf between the inner consciousness of an individual and his external life That is often the cause for our breakdowns in health. And when that gulf becomes too wide, the soul, which is a concentration of consciousness, decides to abandon the body. If care can be taken to keep an interchange, a relation, developing relation between the consciousness and outer nature, then illnesses are not that frequent, and the soul does not need to abandon the body before it runs its full course. I mentioned that our health depends to a certain extent on the sleep that we have. What happens when a normal person goes to sleep? His body goes to sleep. The physical body is in a supine position, but his mind is active, furiously active, more active than in the waking condition, because it is freed from the trammels of external distractions. The vital energy surge, the subconscious sends up its waves. So it is all a pell-mell, and we see them in our dreams, all kinds of dreams, all kinds of mix-ups, which make us feel at times miserable. Ask ourselves, are we really capable of those things? But it is a chaos. And you wake up many times, instead of being refreshed, exhausted. You feel dull, you feel out of sorts, you feel weak, you feel sucked out. That is because the whole system, the inner being, has not had 1 minute's rest. It is only the physical body that has lapsed into inertia, lethargy, and it has not been supported from inside. And the discipline that the mother prescribes for making this sleep more organized, more conscious, more productive is a part of the yogic process that each one of the practitioners of this yoga has to undergo. To be conscious, to make the sleep conscious. So the first instruction that she gives is that don't just go to sleep, don't go to bed when you are tired. When you have just finished all your routine work, you just don't lie down and shut your eyes. You need to prepare yourself for sleep, just as you need to prepare yourself for death. You need to prepare yourself. And that is, after all the activities of the day are over, you have to sit or walk by yourself, letting the impulses slow down. If you need, you can take something that helps you, like a warm cup of tea or milk, Horlicks or whatever it is, Ovaltine, that makes you feel warm and helps the body to settle down, not excite it further. Thereafter, says, read something which will soothe the nerves. For us, a book like Prayers and Meditations. Mother gave special importance to these prayers and meditations because of a certain quality of consciousness that would induce quiet and sleep. A wakeful sleep, as she describes it. You have to read that. Or if that is too much of a strain, put some gentle music which soothes the nerves, calms the mind, and then when you are sufficiently gathered in your consciousness, you sit down on the bed. Think of the divine or one who represents the divine for you. Remember your highest ideal. Offer yourself consciously, not mechanically, to that truth, to the divinity whom you adore, and entrust yourself to its care and be quiet. Don't concentrate, relax and meditate. When you do that, when there is a slow beginning of the folds of sleep, you slide into sleep. You don't suddenly go lie down and go to bed, but you slide into sleep. And a sleep that is so entered into, within an hour and a half, it recoups almost the whole of energy that has been spent out in the day. And when you wake up, renew, don't just roll, renew your aspiration. Link yourself again to your source of inspiration and hope. And once again, get into that mood of sleep. So each time you wake up, spend a minute to re-link yourself with your highest self. Naturally, the position in which you sleep matters. It has been found out by doctors that the maximum number of cases of heart attacks, they occur when one lies on back. We think it is the most comfortable position to lie on the back, but heart attacks tend to occur in that condition. So it is advised that you incline yourself on one side, maybe the left side or the right side. The left side is advisable because it is found to promote better digestion. Maybe in the midst of sleep you return to your original position, but that's another matter. But as far as possible, to direct the physical position to be on the left side, again maybe on the right side, but as far as possible not on the back. When you sleep on the back, there is always a movement, unconscious, to pull the higher forces, and there is tension. You don't let them flow in you, but you pull. Particularly for those who practice this yoga of ascent and descent, it is very important not to take a position which induces the pulling action. That is as far as the sleeping position is concerned. And If during the day, ultimately it is the state of consciousness in the waking state that determines the state of consciousness in the sleep state. If you have been careful to keep close to the higher consciousness or the higher personality, that continues even in dreams. Dreams is a subject by itself into which I will not enter today. Now, so a conscious sleep means you are in a position to direct the movement of dreams in a direction which you want. Those of you who have had a conscious sleep would remember that there are occasions when you have not allowed things just to happen, but you have willed them to go in a particular direction. Now that is called conscious state in dreams. And you have to be conscious. For us, for instance, Mother represents the divine for us. So if we have a habit during the daytime of always remembering her, not only when we are faced with danger or in difficulty, but even spontaneously at all times, including those in which we are very happy. Well, at critical times in the dreams, to repeat her name releases certain forces which changes the character of the dream. Sri Aurobindo describes in Savitri, both in the journey of Ashwapati and in the interior journey of Savitri, how they held the Savior name on their lips. They held their thought to the Savior name. So the name is important, very important for us. Sri Aurobindo describes why forms, why names are important in the life divine. That's another subject altogether. Now, to remember the Mother, for instance, in dreams is an achievement in itself. And that raises the character of dreams. And at the end, each time you wake up, she says it is a good discipline to try to remember what have I been dreaming. Give a minute or two and the memory will come back. And at the end of the night, which is the times, we can't be too rigid about the waking time. When you wake up, she says, don't jump up, but stay. Stay in that position. Don't even change your positions. Don't pull the sheet, but just stay quiet and try to remember what was the last dream. It will elude you. What was the last scene? Well, you get a little bit, then use it as a thread and go backwards. So if you spend 5 to 10 minutes when you wake up in bed, in that position, you will be able to link up all that has happened during the night. Of course, it takes time. It may take years to perfect this discipline. But you will be able to come to the point with which you started in the evening, at night, before you went into sleep. And that is what is called conscious sleep. And in conscious sleep, you can register more progress spiritually than in the waking state when you are subjected to 1,000 distractions, invasions of your privacy. To utilize the night for your inner growth is an art. It is why the Gita says that a jnani, what is day for an ordinary common man is night for the yogin, and what is night for the yogin is a day for the common man. He is awake in another condition to which we are normally, the common man is normally closed, shut. So sleep is not to be taken as a period of waste, as a period of loss, but a very pregnant period, duration of self-collection, self-gathering, linking up with the higher resources, and if we want, communing with the higher powers, call them gods, call them deities, call them angels. You can commune. You can be aware of their participation in your life. And that is a region where occult science comes into operation, which is outside the scope of our discussion. So as you see, both illness, health and sleep are interrelated. They are two aspects of our yoga. I say our yoga because there are certain lines of yoga in which neither of these things really matters. They are concerned only with the salvation of the soul, and the body anyway is to be rejected and thrown, and the less we bother about it, the better. And they even try not to sleep. They may take certain intoxicants and spend their time in those what are called trips. But it has a disastrous effect on the body, which is another topic. And now that I have given a few salient points on the subjects, I would certainly welcome questions on these themes.
It was really nice to have your views on the practical aspects of sleep. And one question which comes to my mind in your earlier part of the speech is that you said in Ayurveda, the medicine is in its own consciousness. What is the physical significance of this?
I didn't mean exactly like that. What I meant was the consciousness, the tejas, the Shakti in Ayurvedic preparations is nearer the natural energy in creation, natural consciousness, than allopathic medicines, because they are not too much interfered with chemicals. The plant has a certain quality. Each plant has a certain curative power. Now that curative power of that particular plant is not much interfered. They just try to, compress it and give it in a takeable form. They may prepare decoctions, they may prepare asavas. But if you add preservatives, take out the essence and put it in the form of tablets, well, there you destroy the curative quality. So Ayurveda, as being practiced so long, tries to keep the curative quality, which I call the plant consciousness, in its pristine form. Do I make myself clear?
The thing is that in any potion which you take, they are all the chemicals. For example, we have got many alkaloids. Say urea, quinine, what we take it generally. We have got certain alkaloids which have been synthesized in the laboratory and they have been characterized as the natural alkaloids themselves. And they are also given as drugs. So they also supplement this natural source even. And even then they are purine. Now it is not necessary to take actual extract of urea quinine to give to a patient which suffers from its deficiency.
It will be the difference between sugar and saccharine.
No, but sugar, if it is synthesized as sugar, then it can replace sugar itself.
Saccharine.
The saccharine is a different chemical altogether.
But what I mean is, from health point of view, for instance, jaggery is more nourishing and healthful than sugar. And in Ayurveda, they always speak of jaggery. It is from that point of view.
Could you explain the sentence of Sri Aurobindo? He has said that medicine unnecessarily prolongs the illness.
I believe he had in mind the fact that while it may give relief from the particular condition for which you prescribe that medicine, it creates another kind of illness which you see later on. So one illness may be brought under control, but something else is potently implanted. So one who takes medicines continues to take medicines in life.
Can there be any dreamless?
Now this is a subject, which is a bit controversial, but the fact is, it is only a yogin who can go into samadhi that can have a dreamless sleep. The rest of the people who tell us that they don't get dreams, we have sound sleep. It only shows that they go down to a level from where there is no memory. When they wake up, there is no linkage to what they were undergoing. So they say we had no sleep. But if you have those machines which register the activities, one can know that some activity, brain activity or whatever is going on. But when the person says this, he is not telling falsehood, but he is just not aware. There is no link, there is no memory. Even as in certain types of samadhi, of which Patanjali speaks, there is no memory. They can't. That is why both Sri Aurobindo and Mother say, what is the use of that? Unless you are conscious of what takes place. Link it up with external life and elevate it into that state. It is a waste of time. As an achievement, yes, it has value. Well, that is not enough. Spiritual illness takes place when the soul wants something, aspires for something. You have started on the journey, but you are betraying the soul at every step by falsehood, by indulgence, by treachery, all kinds of anti-spiritual things. Then the soul feels frustrated. The soul feels suffocated. And that struggle of the soul is expressed in some severe illness of the person. So mere strengthening of the nervous envelope is not going to help, because this is not an external attack. It is an internal insincerity. Insincerity. Many skin diseases are a result of this inner stress. That is why they are very difficult to cure.
Such can be cured by spiritual intervention. By spiritual intervention.
You mean spiritual illnesses? Naturally. Spiritual means is the only way to cure spiritual illnesses. But spiritual ways can cure even physical illnesses and mental illnesses.
Pandit also spoke of seizing the kingdom of heaven by violence. That leads to maybe a heavy place. Do we get illnesses due to that?
Yeah, yes. You see, if you shoot beyond your range, and that is what mother calls pulling. Pulling what you can't hold. And if you can't hold what you pull down, either you grow insane or there is some violent disorder. That is the danger of trying to seize the kingdom of God by violence. It is a phrase and a misleading phrase. The doors are open only at the choice of the self. But Upanishad is very clear on the point that the self reveals its body only to him whom it chooses. Not your learning, not your tapasya, not your any human effort can give the ultimate solution. The ultimate of a sadhana is always an act of grace and not something that you win by human effort.
Sometimes we are advised that before we sleep we should pray or concentrate on the positive aspect, on the divinity or on the deity, and then sleep. Then during the duration of the night, the body gets a nourishment, and when you wake up rejuvenated as well. Can it be done with a mantra? What I have felt personally is,
Provided you don't repeat the mantra mechanically, but you repeat the mantra at the same time dwelling on its meaning, keeping close to its meaning. That is, if you do it consciously, yes, because the effect of the mantra continues even after you stop repeating it. But it all depends upon how you do it.
Pandit, by dwelling on the meaning of the mantra, do you not compare also to the intention?
No, it is not an act of mind, of the intellect, but an operation of the consciousness. When you dwell on the meaning of a mantra, it is not a mental understanding, but even the heart participates. The whole being absorbs the vibrations of that truth. So the mind plays a very small part. In the beginning, the mind may, but the dwelling spreads over to the entire being.
and the mantra keeps on repeating itself even when you are asleep.
Yes. And even when you get up also, you will
You
hear
get up with the
this.
same mantra.
That shows that the mantra has claimed your being and it is doing the sadhana. I think we should stop.
One more question.
That is a fairly superficial moment, you know. Afterwards you have to decide in one place. Otherwise you will go on like a shuttlecock from place to place by your whims. It is very good indeed if you can, concentrate in so many places. But you have to do certain observation, self-observation, and see where you are more awake than other places. And then stay fixed to that. For a period of time, you have to dig yourself in one point. And when you need really, in the process of yoga, to concentrate elsewhere, that point will shift by itself without your knowing it. But in the beginning, you have to fix it.
Well, you would have noticed that how every aspect we took up opened a whole big world in itself. Entire universe was opened. We started with anything, whether it was illness, sleep, but each thing is a world with worlds within worlds. And the topic is unending, but the discovery is most enthralling. I mean, if we can take up the discovery at every moment of our life, it becomes such a beautiful adventure for all of us. There's just one remark which came to my mind. I mean, it was not the point which was the main point of the talk, but somehow that came to my mind when Pandit spoke about having a most joyful disposition. This is something very typical of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. It is not that grim, ascetic denial and that tapasya aspect. Even in the struggle, even in the effort, in every aspect of life, that element of joy is always there. And that one sentence I reminded of, as he said, depression should be kept away. The sentence is that when coming to you, the depression should get depressed. So we'll end our session here. Now we'll have the...
Yes. Arising out of Vijay's observation on joy, I think I should share with you what Mother recollects. She says, Paul Richard, he was a co-editor of the Arya, which he and Sri Aurobindo started in 1914. Sri Aurobindo had no intention of starting any journal. He was so full. But when Monsieur Richard proposed to start an English and French review of culture, giving the new thought, envisaging the creation to come, the new age, Sri Aurobindo says that though he didn't think of it, still it was a principle within that a yogi ought to be able to take up anything that came to him. So he said, all right, and he agreed, and they started this Arya. At that time, Mother says that there used to be constant discussions and even stormy debates between the two, Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And Monsieur Richard. He would say that this whole creation has come into being as an act of the will of God. Sri Aurobindo says no. It has come into being as an act of the joy of God. Creation is there, it has emanated in an ebullition of delight, not a concentrated will. Pardon? Yes. So that is what Mother recollects. and the whole creation being intrinsically have come into being on the waves of joy, we are most natural when we have a happy disposition, when we take joy in things, when we radiate joy, when we look more to the joyful aspect of things. So I suppose that should be the note on which we should end today.